Yeah, I will do myself. It's perfectly all right. Thanks.
Right, right.
And thanks for reminding me, right? I
Absolutely.
didn't know that. Sorry. And so my background is also given here, so you can visit. And if I'm interested in working in any of these area, maybe we can also discuss how we can collaborate each other. Right, and I also shared my email and mobile. So I will also have WhatsApp here. So if you are feel free to communicate with me if you're having any issues on like maybe setting up Python or writing some code. So if you need any help, so I'm really happy to help you. Right. Having said that, let me briefly go through the plan for the programming. So I will assume that you have very little programming, but I know like most of you have some background in programming languages, so you are always let me know where to skip, right? The basic idea is in after these 10 sessions, you should be able to write a small Python script to solve problems. And also like we will go through each and every structural programming concepts and how it is implemented in Python. And also we will look at some good programming practices, especially when it comes to Python programming. The basic content is like this. So we will first look at the basics. So today and on Friday, we will cover in the Python basics. For example, talk about the how variables are handled in Python, as well as what data types we will use in Python. And then again, we will look at for control structures like how selections, repetitions, and what are the options available in Python. Then we'll go to modularization like writing Python, as well as writing own set of uh, Python functions, and then you can create your own custom modules. Then we will also focus on input output, again important place where you can read and write the data. And this will be useful at later stage when we talk about like how Python is used in data analytics. So I will actually going to briefly talk about that at the very end. Then we will look at data structures, how lists, for example, arrays, if you have learned in other programming languages, handle in Python. And then string processing, very important nowadays. And then the dictionaries. Then OOP concepts in very brief, where everything in Python implement as classes, like starting from data types, we will see like integer data type in Python, it's an integer class. So we will look at briefly object-oriented concepts in Python, so that when you write program, you are comfortable with the use of OOP concepts. Then quality assurance. So we will also look at some programming practices available in Python. Especially we have PyDoc as well as PyTest. Right? PyDoc means documentation. So this is available in other programming languages like Java as well. So when you write a code, how do you write with the documentation, right? So we will talk about that. And then like how do you integrate testing into your code? So that part will cover under quality assurance. And finally, we will look at the numerical computation, especially how to handle data, matrices, matrix manipulations, and then data visualization, and very briefly on small machine learning problem. We will go through from beginning to the end, where you can reading the data and then also like manipulating data and come up with the module and display your results. So that's the whole plan for these 10 sessions. So I'll be teaching actually the fundamentals from first year level to postgraduate levels for some time now. So I hope that the knowledge I have gained over the years could be shared among yourself as well. Okay, so that's about for me and about for this module. Before I start any further, I would like to talk about or hear from you. about a brief introduction to yourself and maybe what you might expect from this small sessions like the module, Python module. So maybe if you can spend like few minutes, like 1 to 2 minutes per participant. By the way, I see Dr. Nanda Gunawardhan as well.
Yeah. Actually, I came to take this course because I thought Python is very important for me as a chemist. But I
Okay.
am taking undergraduate course after 20 years, so it is good time to learn new things. So that is my whole objective.
So glad to see you there then, Dr. Gunawardhan. Right. How about the others? Like, can you spend few minutes just introduce yourself so that I know the audience?
Good evening, Dr. Igal. I am Rajiv from SLTC. I am actually my background is in civil engineering.
Yeah.
And I am actually I really interested in doing something like this. So I have done MATLAB. So I thought of this will also help me, improve a little bit of programming knowledge that I have. So thanks for this opportunity. And
just to add Rajiv's comment, because Python, I have seen like there are books written on in civil engineering on structural design.
Yeah.
I have seen like Python extensively used.
Yeah. We are using much of those things in structural analysis and design part.
Yeah. If you already have some background in MATLAB, that will be easier because, like, for example, numerical Python we will discuss at the very end, which is you can actually compare with MATLAB. So if you already have MATLAB knowledge, we can actually compare one-to-one with Python. So that I will do later on.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rajiv.
I am Jagat Vijayaratna. Actually, that I have my background is mathematics, and then I have also have a bit experience in MATLAB and the C#, C++, and these areas. And then I'm quite interested. I am also doing undergraduate module after a long time. I am a senior lecturer at the University of Colombo and working in my sabbatical at SLTC. And so nice, Sudhangal, to listen to you on this. I am also very much interested in programming in these areas in Python.
Okay. Thanks. Nice to hear from you.
I'm Deepika. So,
Hello, Deepika.
yes, I'm in biosystems field, biosystems engineering with a specialization in food processing. So I actually, after my undergraduate, I didn't touch this area. So my knowledge is nil on programming. So, but I see the basic applications in my field now. Therefore, I want to actually learn, and I think it will be very grateful for me that you are giving us your expertise knowledge. Thank you.
Thanks, Deepika. Thanks. Oh, maybe another volunteer, please. Maybe then we can continue with the material.
Okay, I'm Chanakya Pandila. So actually, I'm with basically electronics background, but later with my PhD research, I have specialized into this electrical engineering and the power system, that domain. So basically what makes us thought about to start this, because most of us have at least graduated 5-6 years ago at least, and we don't have good formal education on these modern trends. So since Python came into the popularity recently and we haven't had a good chance to learn it properly, we have decided to arrange this and get trained. So basically that is the reason most of the staff has joined for this one.
Okay, thanks, Chanakya, for taking time and organizing this. So maybe like we'll continue, and if when the time permits, maybe others also can introduce yourselves. Thanks. Okay, so let me now move on to the tools that I'm going to plan for this session. So if you do not have this installed, maybe from next session onwards, you spend some time on installing this. The very first one I'm going to use comes with the standard Python installation, which I will go to like after finishing this one. So if you go to python.org and if you just download Python there and if you install, you will get the standard Python environment. This is we call idle. So I will start first few sessions with idle, right? I spend some time with the idle. Then once we finish that, we will go to the Jupyter notebooks, which is actually, if you're not familiar with that, it's like a notebook. You can write your notes at the same time, you can have the code, right? So that is where, like, if you look at like data analytics and, everything now, basically starting from sharing the code as well as sometimes even for the implementations, people are using this. And there are some environments where you can directly access it. For example, if you have a Google account in Google, if you go to colab.research.google.com, or we will short say Google Colab, it will give you environment for this one. So actually you can use not only for Python, you can use for other programming languages like R, but mainly this is quite popular with Python. So we are going to, after finishing the first few sessions, we are going to look at in the Google Colab. Or if you want to, if you're interested in installing into your machine, I suggest you go for Jupyter Lab. So you can visit jupyterlab.org. So you can install if you want to have a local installation of the Jupyter Notebook. So these are the two tools or software that I actually plan to use for the session. So if you are not installed, maybe you can just go to python.org. You can download Python and install and get ready, because I'm going to use, like, after some time, I'm going to use Python. But if you do not have time to install, or if you do not have Python, or then there are interactive shells available even with the Python organized org. So I will show you how to do that. And the next important thing is the references. Actually, these two references I plan only for Python programming. And especially if you are new to Python, and if you would like to know the theoretical side of it, I highly recommend the first one. We actually, it's aimed for how to think like a computer scientist, but the latest book they call Think Python, and it's free, right? You can download the whole book and then you can start reading. But if you need to like just quickly learn Python, and if you want to know how things get it done, then maybe you can use a general tutorial like W3 Schools. So there are many sources where you can learn, but I would like to direct these two. But if you're interested in data analytics or machine learning, there'll be another source which I have not shared here. But if you're interested, I can share that one, especially with the Professor Andrew Neggs has written a book on machine learning, talk about the main concepts in machine learning, where any novice user comes to this area should read the book. So that I will share with you later on. Right, having said that, before we move to the next topic, do you have any questions, concerns? Right. Okay. So let's move on to then today's plan. So as I told you beginning, I'll be discussing the part of the Python basics, like how you define variables, what operators are there, and stuff like this, because I have seen some of you do not have a background in programming, and some of you have already know like couple of languages. So those who already know something, you might be get bored very easily, since I'm going to start from the very basics. But I hope you can enjoy this later my session. So please bear with that if you already know the basic concepts in programming. Right. Okay, so Surani asked a good question. So she's asking like giving me like how to install Python. Yes, I will show you that first before we move on, because then you can spend time on installing this one. So let me share my screen first. So let me share my whole screen. So I'm sharing my screen, and then I will go to one of my browsers. Right. So let me go to www. python.org. Can you go to this website? Right. If you go to python.org and if you go to downloads, usually you will get here the required version for your machine, right? In my case, I have a Windows machine and the suggested download for Python version is Python 3.10.0. So in case if you have a Linux or Mac operating system, so you will get, relevant software for you, right? So you can just click on this one. So this will get downloaded into your machine. So in my case, I have clicked it and then this is my file. So let me show you. So I have already downloaded earlier, but I will double click. Now to install, you can simply double click it. Okay, so I will uninstall. Okay, so in your case, if you click this, maybe, yeah, maybe first I install and then I will install. Otherwise, you might get confused. So give me a couple of minutes. By that time, you can go to Python and then download the file and get ready. Right? I will show you again the steps. Right? You go to Python, go to downloads, download the version suggested for you, click on it and get ready. Right. Now I'm going to install it, right? Let me go to the folder. You can see Python, in my case, 3.10.0. This is the version I have downloaded. I'm going to double click on it. And if you do that, you will get install Python and there will be an install now button. You can simply click it. If you have experience installing software, then if you want to customize it, yes, you can go for custom installation. For novice users, I will go to install now, right? And then again, if you want to add Python to the path, which means if you want to run Python from anywhere in the command line, so you can click on this one as well, right? And then you can click install now. So this will take 1 or 2 minutes, depend on the machine speed. And it should install Python version. In my case, it's 3.10.0. Right. Now, if it is a success, you should see the message saying setup was successful. And now you may close the button, which means now you have successfully installed Python in your machine. If you're a success, can you raise your hands? You have a reaction where you can raise your hands. If you're a success, can you raise your hand? So anyone is having any issues, maybe you can share your screen with me, or maybe you can write down any issues you might have in the chat. Hinduja said your setup has failed. Can you let me know like more details? Yes, Migar, if you have a Windows 7, make sure that you install Windows version, Python version before 3.9, like let's say 3.8. Can you try Migara 3.8 if you have Windows 7? Okay, let me show you that one as well. Now, in my case, it was a success, but if you have a Windows 7 machine, maybe you go to Windows section and go to 3.8 or something, right? So you can try maybe Python version Windows 3.8.12. Migar, maybe you could try this. But if you have XP, then you can go again the lower version. Okay, Hinduja, that might be the reason. So in that particular case, can you try with this one? So maybe try with Python 3.8.12. So you can come here, click on this one, then it will get downloaded that one. Right? And then after that, you can, install and try. So let me know. Right. Others, may I proceed with the slides? About Surani, Udesh, were you able to install?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yes, we are
Varuni?
fine.
Okay, others fine. Thanks. So those who are having issues, maybe you can report me your progress in the chat. So assuming all the others are fine, maybe you can lower the hands. Thanks. I'll switch to the slides again. Right. Okay. Now, if you're wondering why Python, so there are a lot of features available in Python. Let me spend like 1 or 2 minutes explaining why Python, right? So if we start with the features, one of the things is it's a very simple language to learn. Ruan asked whether he can use PyCharm. Yes, go ahead. If you have like any other, no problem. It's a very simple language and it's easy to learn. So that is one of the things why it's getting so popular nowadays. Because anyone can learn, like after getting the basics done, maybe hopefully after finishing this session, once you get the basics, actually you can learn by yourself, right? So that's very easy to learn. So you can believe me, and let's see after the sessions. And the other point is, like, once you write a code in Python, you can run it anywhere, right? So even you can run Python in your mobile, Raspberry Pis, that we have single board computers, and even you can go for supercomputers. So that's another reason why Python is popular, and it's free and open source. And definitely you have the high level language. It's a high level language like Java or C. So it's portable and it's interpreted programming language where it is recommended for the beginners, especially. Python programming is used, if you look at the undergraduate studies, it is taught as a starting point for most of the colleges nowadays, because it's again interpreted language. And then again, it has other programming support for programming paradigms, especially object-oriented programming. And then I have seen like people have used in other paradigms as well. And it's extensible, which means if you do not see any feature in Python, you can extend it using a language like C. and it also embeddable with other programming languages as well, right? So for example, in C version, there's a version called Cython, where you actually can embed codes, right? The final one is there are a lot of libraries. I have seen, like you said, we have chemist where like you have a lot of libraries there, biology, medicine, even engineering. I have seen like in structural engineering, a lot of Python libraries have developed, right? So GIS and even gaming, like for kids, we used to teach Python, like Pygame, for example. So we have a game engine in Python. And also data analytics, we have like numerical Python, which is very similar to MATLAB. And then Matplotlib, that means same as MATLAB plotting, is also implemented in Python. Then Seaborn, and then machine learning, libraries like scikit-learn and then TensorFlow. So there are a lot of, libraries are available you to start your work. So it's simply you have to spend some time on learning the basics. So I believe that, so whatever the, profession you are, you have something to do with Python, right? Okay. So having said that, let me quickly go to the two modes available in Python. Now I'm going to assume that you have already installed Python in your machine. Now, if you look at what Python can do, like you can start in with solving some set of equations, or you can search replace some text in a document, like in biology, you can search, biological strings, like you have these values, or like if you take, nowadays we have social media. If you're interested in learning at what trends are going in social media, you can look for text. And then even you can go for predicting weather conditions. So simply all these comes under, developing some program, right? So for that, we can make use of, Python. So let me start our very first program with the very simple idea of printing a simple message. So I'm going to explain this with two modes. First one with the shell. That means we have already installed, so there'll be a shell. And then the second one, I'm going to write it as a file, right? So let me start with the shell now. So I'm going back to my start. Right? So I will be here clicking my start menu. If you have already installed Python, if you're a success, I hope most of you guys are success. So in that particular case, we can go to start button. You can look for the installation. So one way is you can go through this one and look for Python installation. So there should be a folder. So in my case, now there are multiple versions, but the version we have installed is Python 3.10. So in the new version, I can click here. And then here is, we have the idle. So this is the basic editor available in Python, right? So this is my shell. Okay, how may I have got up to this far? Can you please let me know? You can always, use, raise hand option. Yeah, if you have done it, like maybe you can click it so that I know that you have completed up to this point. Okay, thanks everyone. Okay, now I can type the commands. Now, the very first command we are going to look at is printing some simple message. So I'm going to type like print. To print a message in Python, like in any other programming language, we can use single quotes or double quotes. So I'll start with single quote first. So I'm going to say hello world. So in the shell, what happens? So immediately when you type and enter, you will get the output. Like in MATLAB, you have a command line. In MATLAB also, you have a similar setup where you can type it. If you have already used R also has the same setup where you have a command line. So in Python also you have the same thing, right? So this is like just how we write this very simple program, just print some message, hello world. So in the shell, you just type this. Okay. I hope you have finished that part. Okay, you can lower the hand. Thanks. And then I'm going to use it as a separate script. Now for that, I'm going to click File, New File, and then I will get a blank window. Now I'm going to put this into same window. I'm going to split the screen. So this blank window will be in one side, and my Python, I will take it to the another side. So that what I'm going to do, I'm going to type the command in the blank window. And when I run this script, the output will be available in the shell. If you do not know how to split this one, you have to press window key and the arrow key. Right now, to get the window to the right, you press window key together with the right arrow. Right. So I have split the screen like this. Okay. Now I'm going to write it as a script. So I will write print hello world. And then I'll save this. I'm going to save. Right, let me go to desktop. I will create a folder, let's say SLTC, right? And then this is my first program. So I'm going to say, okay, hello world. So I saved it. Now, if I save this in the window, you should see in the title bar as hello world.py. Right, hello world.py.
Hello, still I could not separate the window. Can you repeat it again? How to do that?
Yeah, okay. So let's say I have windows like this. Right, let's say I have windows like this. So what I'm going to do, so let's say I want to make it to the right side of the screen. I will press my window key, right? Keep pressing and then press the right arrow. It will go to the right, right? If it go to the right, it will show the other window where I can select which one is the left one. So in my case, I can select the shell. So that now in left side, I have the shell, right hand side, I have the window. Okay, now what I have done is after splitting, like worst case, you can manually do. I hope that you can do, right? And then you save the file wherever you want. In my case, I have saved in the desktop. Now I can run. I will click run module. That is how we can execute the script in. And when I run module, so you will see the output in the shell. So this is my second output. When I actually run my script, so script in the right hand side, when I say run module, you can, get the output in the shell. So if you have completed up to this point, can you please raise your hands? Okay, that's great. Okay, I think we have the basics now. So now we are success in using both shell as well as writing a separate, window or as a script. You know when to use. So whenever you want to try out few commands, use shell. Whenever you want to develop a program, go to a new window, write and save it as a Python script, and you can run from there. So I hope you understand that. Okay, now you can lower the hands. Thanks, everyone. Those who have any issues, can you please also write in the chat so that I know that you are having an issue? Right. Now I'm going to go back to my slides. So let's move on. In the note, actually, you will get everything. So I have write down everything like how to write hello world using Python, right? So in the shell mode, it's just you type in the command line and immediately you will get the output. But if you write it as a separate file, a separate script, then basically you have to go with file new window, you type the command and then you save it, right? Once you do that, when you want to run the program, you have to choose run module, or remember the shortcut key F5, right? If you press F5, that will also the shortcut to run your script. Right. Now that we have seen like two modes, right? So we can talk about more about the Python basics. Right. So everything is given, even I explain everything here. So I'm not going to talk about a few things, but let me start with getting help. Now, as a Python beginner, as a beginner of any programming language, we should know how to get help. The easiest way is you can type in the Google and you can find it. But simply you can use Python itself to get the help. So there's a function called help function, right? So let me explain that one. Now, if you go, let's say I'm going to get the two things here. So I will check this with the shell first. So let's say I want to know more details about the print function. So simply type help and within help type print. Okay, this is like, okay, I am asking help about print. And if you press enter, so Python will give you a detailed description like this. So I will actually enlarge the cell so that it's clear to you, right? Now, when I say help print, this is what it gives me. So in this help, it will talk about how to use print function. Okay, so Ruan asked me how to save the code. Ruan, do you want to save the script? Which one you want to save?
Sir, I want to save the script, sir.
Okay. So in the script actually, so let me, so this is my script. So you can go to file, save. In my case, I already saved, so I will choose save as. And you can create a folder as you wish, and you can type a file name and just click save, right? In my case, I already have the file name. So then it should save. If you have done this successfully, Ruan, you should see the file name on the title bar. Ruan, can you confirm me whether it's a success?
Yes, sir. Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, thanks. It's perfectly all right. So you can interrupt me anytime you want. So we were discussing getting help here. So getting more details about the print is just say help print, right? It'll give you. Now, if you are a beginner, this looks a little bit strange, but believe me, you will learn, right? How to use help. Now, this one says, for example, print, and couple of dots say the details. So printing, you can have value, meaning we have 3 dots here. That means you can print multiple values, right? So which means you can say print. Now, earlier we have a single string we have printed. Now I can have multiple strings. So for example, I can say, okay, hello. I can type it as a separate one. We can have a comma. I can have multiple values. So let me say world, like 2 strings. So it's possible. Even I can go for 3 strings like, okay, let's say SLTC, let's say introduction, right, comma, and Python. So you see, I can have multiple values possible. So that's what you will see here, print value and 3 dots, you know, that means you can have multiple values. So that is possible. The third one, for example, I will come to these things later on as well, but let me explain this one, only this one for the time being. So this says SCP, separation actually. We define how you are going to separate out the values. So the right now it's a space. So if you read it here, it says string inserted between values, default a space. So that's true, right? When you put up the values here, comma separated, you see a space here. Here we have 3 values and you have a space in between. But what that means, if you want to change this, let's say, instead of, you know, spaces, you need commas. Now, for example, you know that comma separated values, CSV file, let's say you want to create a CSV file. So all the values you need to comma separate. So which means instead of space, I need a comma. So how to do this? So this is how you are going to do this. So we are going to say print, let's say hello, comma, world, comma. You can say separation, you can define it as within the single quote, I will put a comma. So meaning of this is, okay, first 2 values are the values to be printed. With the SCP separation, we are going to define when you print the values in between, put a comma, right? So if I do that, right now you see hello, comma, world. You can change if you want. Let's say instead of comma, I need a colon like this. Now I will have a colon in between. So that is the beauty of getting a help in Python, right? You can actually learn this is by just by typing it in the Google as well. But then again, Python already have, you know, built-in help. I think you should try to learn how to use that. Okay. So similarly, if I want to do the same, by the way, if you want to get the same value again, you can click here. And if you press enter, it will come to the current prompt as well. Or else you can go to Alt P, previous. I will show you that. Now here also I'm going to say, okay, SCP, for example, I'm going to have colon. So you see now, so in between SLT, introduction and Python, we have a colon. So if you want to get previous commands, press Alt P repeatedly, you can, it will go back, right? Then press N if you want to go forward. So remember the shortcut keys to get previous commands, Control P and Alt P and Alt N. So let me type in the chat, right? Alt plus P for previous commands. N for next. That means if you go back, if you come back again, then you use Alt N. If you have finished up to this point, can you please raise your hand so that I know that everybody, you know, goes along with what I've been covering right now. Thanks, Jagat, Smear, Anupama, Sadish, Nanda, Surani, Madhuchani, thanks. Right, how about, already we are waiting for Kalani, Kapila, Kasun, Migara. Thanks, you can lower the heads. Okay, so I think now basics are okay. So what we were discussing is getting help. We have seen how to use help and help with print. Now there's another mode I just want to show you before we proceed. You can just type help. We'll give you a completely separate help. So you have to say help and you have to say type help and brackets. When you press help with just the bracket, you get the help utility in Python. That means if you want to learn more on, let's say, a couple of commands, so instead of typing help and command every time, you can just say help, open and close bracket will give you the help utility separately. So you can type whatever the modules, keywords, symbols, or the topic here. Now, for example, if I want to get the help for print, I can say, okay, print. Just simple print will work. It will give you help for print. The very same output we have seen earlier. If you want to quit from this, just say quit. We will get back to the original Python prompt. Okay, good. Right, let's proceed. Now, I think we discussed how to use help, and I hope now you are comfortable with even getting help, the built-in help in Python. Right. So let's look at how to handle variables in Python, and we are going to discuss the different types of data types available in Python. Python is actually different ways of handling data because like if you take C, for example, you have to define variables before you use it. But in Python, it's the other way around, right? Python automatically, assign the data type. Now, depending on the value type, the Python recognize it, whether it's an integer, whether it's a floating point number, that means a number with a decimal place, or whether it's a string value, right? Now, we know the constants that will not change when you execute the program. And the variable, the values that might change during the execution. So when you take numbers as it is, it will not change. If you take strings as it is, it will not change, right? Okay, so let's look at the numbers, right? So in Python, we will have three number types. We can have integers, floating point numbers, that means a number with decimal places, and then complex numbers. If you've done electrical, you know about the complex numbers, right? So that means you have an imaginary part, the real and imaginary part, you can put it. Now, for example, integer types, you can have whole numbers, positive and negatives. Floating point numbers, that means the term means float, means in Python we represent this as float, integer we represent int. So floating point number, even if you have just a decimal point, Python treats it as a floating point number. And you will see later on, you can have number with just with the decimal point, then Python will take it as a floating point number. And there's another representation for floating point. You will see some numbers like this. For example, here we have 8.056 E6. The here E indicates the power of 10. So that means this means, right? Let me take a pen. So 8.056 E6 means 8.056 into 10 to the power 6. So make a note of this. Now, for example, if you have 1 E2, so this means 1 into 10 to the power 2. But remember, this will be floating point, right? This will be a floating point. Then complex numbers, we will have real and imaginary part. And imaginary part we represent with J, right? So let me show you this in the shell, right? So I'm going to take part of this. Hopefully, this side is better. Right. So if you take 508, so this will treat it as a integer value. I will discuss how you can check how Python understand these numbers. But if you put okay, Rajiv, that is you have to type quit. Sorry.
I just saw it. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yes. So to come out from the help, you have to type quit. Anyway, good you have put it because I couldn't highlight it like when I explained it. Right. The second thing I want to explain is even if you put 0, this will consider, since we have a decimal point, right? Python treats it as a floating point number. Even sometimes you will see later on, right? When we create matrices, we will talk about how to automatically create matrices. Now there you will see numbers like this, a number with a decimal point. Even with the decimal point, Python treats it as a floating point number. The next thing is like use of E, that is actually scientific way of representing numbers. So in Python, if you put it like this is same as 8.056 into 10 to the power 6, which is this number. So that's why I said when I say IE2 means 1 into 10 to the power 2, right? Which is 100, but 100 will take it as a floating point number. Sometimes this might matter, so that's why I go into details. Then complex numbers, right? If you are not familiar with complex, just forget about this. But those who already know, maybe then you can use it for your calculations, right? Okay, so these are the number types available. Now let's look at strings or messages, how we are going to represent in Python. By the way, I hope everyone finish up to this point. May I quickly check how many of you have finished up to this point? If you don't mind, yeah, you can raise your hands. Okay, wow, that's great. Okay, thanks. Sandamali, if the quit is not working, press Ctrl C, worst case. Now let's say help. Now this is how we type help. And you go to help and you should type quit. If quit not works, right, press Ctrl C. So I'm going to press Ctrl help. I have to type brackets. If I want to come out, I can say Ctrl C. So Ctrl C should work. Sandamali, can you confirm? Okay, good, thanks. So good that Sandamali noted this one. So if you type quit and still you are inside the help, the other way to come out from help is press Ctrl C. Okay, thanks. Okay, so that's about the numbers in Python. I hope you are comfortable with the number representation in Python, especially when you talk about the data analytics, right? So especially we need to know the different types of numbers and so on. So I hope this gives you a basic idea about how Python handles the numbers. Right, now get to know that what type or how Python understand, right? So for that, we can use a type function. So what it does, basically it provides the type of the object. Object means you can have anything, right? So in general, so whenever you give a number, it can give you a type of the number. So it can tell, the type function can tell whether it's an integer, whether it's a float, whether it's a string, and so on. So let's see. So I'm going to get the shell again, right? Now remember earlier I have put 508. Now if you type 508 inside type, now it will say, okay, the class is int, which means Python will consider this number as an integer value, right? So similarly, if you say type, remember earlier I said 508.0. Now Python now consider this as a floating point number. Let me type just 508 with a decimal point, that's all. But even then, this will consider as a float. Right? And let's say type you can check other values as well. Right? 5 plus 4j, it is complex. Right? And then type, you can say hello world with double quotes. It's a string, right? Type with a single quote, SLTC. So it's a string. So you see, the type function is very important to know. Use of type will give the type of the object. So Hassan asked a quite good question. So in Python, commands are case sensitive. The Hassan's question is whether the commands are case sensitive. Now, for example, if you say print hello will work, but if you say capital P print, this will not work. Yes, it's case sensitive. Now, similar for type as well. Thanks, Hassan. So I hope you got the answer. Right. Okay, then. But remember, when you're putting numbers, don't put a comma. Now, for example, let's say I want to find out what the type of 1 million. You know that sometimes we use comma to separate out. I mean, don't put comma because Python will not understand this. Because in comma, use of Python, we use of comma inside the Python has a different meaning. So make sure that when you're typing numbers, not to use commas or any other separator, right? So you should, remove any commas. So later on, we will look at like the usage of commas. For example, when we define list and so on, we'll talk about this later on. Unfortunately, in Darshana, there's no way that you can actually clear the command window. Like in, that when it comes to Windows, we have CLS, and then in Linux command line, we have, clear. But unfortunately, I am not aware of any, command to clear the command window. I don't know whether recent one we have a method to do this. Simply what I do is I close and open a fresh new, command shell. Sorry, I really don't know the answer, Darshana, but if I got to know, like I will let you know. It was not possible some time back. I have not checked the recent one.
Hello, Dr. Nidal. Hello.
Yeah.
Now in this type command, now in one particular location you have used this double quotation, and another location single quote, right?
Yeah.
But it will work for both, right? When you use it print, single quote and double quote both works, right? What is the difference between those two?
Okay. So I will have a separate slide on this one, but since you have asked, yeah. Now, use of the two representation is for, because sometimes the single quote will be a part of the string. Like, for example, let's say I want to print what's your name. If I use a single quote, Now Python will confuse us with this one, isn't it?
Right.
Because it's a part of it,
Ah,
right? So you have a situation like we get an error, but to correct this one, you can either use double quotes. You can either use double quotes, or else you can use escape character. If you have already done programming, you already know, right? You can either use escape character. So in both ways, you can handle this. But simply for novice users, we can say that, okay, whenever you have single quote as a part of the string, then go for double quotes. If you have double quotes as a part of the string, then go for single quotes. Now let's say I want to say hi. So I can say print, right? Single quote, double quote hi, which includes double quotes inside, right? So it will say hi. Okay, Asmir found a way to clear the window programmatically, but you know, Amir, like that, Asmir, that means like there's no short way to clear the screen, right? So hopefully still we don't have a way to do that. Asmir?
Yeah, I think programmatically you need to import the OS module and then run a system command with the CLS.
Yeah. That's why I said,
Yeah.
like in operating system, yes, you can do that.
But not directly.
Yeah.
as a
So
command,
since this is for the novice users, I have not, taught them import, so I'm not going to tell them in the beginning. Then it will confuse us, right? You have to say import.
This is for the people who are curious.
Yeah, I understand. Thanks for sharing anyway, like those who already have the background. I hope you can find a way to do that. But there's no simple method to do this. I really don't know why. Anyway, right. I hope you are clear about the type. May I proceed? So I have already given you some, so you can try. So now there was a question earlier about the strings. So I have a slide I told you, right? So here about the strings. So there are two representations. I already, discussed why there are two representations. So you can either use single quotes or double quotes, right? The reason why sometimes single quotes is a part of the string and sometimes double quote is a part of the string, so you can switch in between, right? But then if you want to have multi-line screen, like if you want to print a menu with multiple lines, then single quote or double quote will not work. If you want to have multiple lines, right, then you have to use either triple single quotes or triple double quotes, right? Now, for example, let me go back. Let me get the shell, right? Now, let's say I want to print the address of my university. Let's say University of Peradeniya. And let's say next line, if I want to type Peradeniya, it will not go to the next line. It will give me a syntax error. Now, if you want to have multiple lines, so simply you can say, okay, print triple double quotes like this, University of Peradeniya. And in the next line, let me say Peradeniya, triple quotes like this, which will give me 2 lines, multi-line string. So this can be done with the single quotes as well. So simply I can say triple single quotes. So both ways will work. Again, if you ask me why there are 2 ways, I think the answer is now obvious. Right? Answer is now obvious. So whenever you have a double quotes as a part of the string, so you should go for single quotes. Whenever you have a single quote part of the string, then you go for double quotes.
So you can keep typing as many lines you want until you close it, right?
Exactly. You can keep on typing.
All right. Okay.
But these are like, you see, the use of shell is you test, you try out simple things. But whenever you write a program, then go for the script.
Yeah.
Which we are going to do later on. Right now, we are trying out like how to use print, how to use, type and so on. So then best would be you try out in the shell. So shell, you can type it like there's no, end to it, you can keep on typing. Right. Okay. So having said that, simple question. Two things. I want you to write the command to display these two things, right? Can you type the command in the chat? Everyone, I want everyone to write. This is too short, Python command. So what is the Python statements to print these two strings? Okay, so it's nice to see that everybody is now comfortable with the print statement as well as use of single and double quotes. As I told you earlier, please, if you can stop me anywhere you want, if there's any unclear, places in the session. Okay. Yes, simply you can use a double quotes here and we can use single quotes. So that's the answer. So I'm not going to show you because I have seen that you already know the answer for there's two simple questions. Right, so let's proceed. Now let me talk about variables in Python. You know that whenever something will change within the program execution, we treated them as variables. Since you have learned variables in mathematics, I do not think so it's that difficult, even if you do not know programming. But one thing we are going to start first, that means how to name variable. We call identifiers, right? So usually when you want to store values, so it could be a number, it could be a string, but let's say you want to keep it in the memory for later processing. So we have to keep it in a variable. The first thing is we have to name the variable. So let's see how we are going to name it. Right. So if you have already learned, programming, you know that any programming language, when you're writing identifiers, you have a set of rules. So here are the rules for Python. So the first character, it could be an alphabet, letter of alphabet, meaning like A to C. You can use any letter, uppercase or lowercase. And only symbol you can use is only underscore. So that means the first character could be any letter or underscore. Second, after the first letter, the remaining could be letters, could be underscores, could be digits. Right? So that's all you need to remember. But remember that these names are case sensitive. There was a question earlier asking like Python commands. Remember, even the names of variables are case sensitive, which means if you type my name in simple letters and my name with capital N, right? Python will treat these two as two different variables. So keep this in mind. If you're a novice user, this is one of the things that you might face in the very beginning. Right. Now, using these 4 lines, now let's identify the valid ones. Now, if you take I, it's valid because you have 1 character and start with the letter. The next one is underscore underscore my underscore name. So we start with the underscore and all the other remaining characters are either underscores or letters. So this is also valid one. This is valid. Name underscore 23, again, first letter is a letter. First character is a letter and the remaining are letters, underscores and digits. So this is correct. And here is also start with the letter. And then the remaining we have letters and digits. This is also good. So these 4 variable names or identifiers are valid in Python. And let's look at the next line. Are 2 things. We have a space. Spaces are not allowed. So this is wrong. Here we have multiple spaces. You cannot have multiple spaces like this. So this is wrong. Then my dash name, so dashes are not allowed. Only symbol we could use is underscore. So dashes are not allowed. And in this one you have quotes. So you cannot use quote as a part of variable name. So you see that you need to follow variable naming rules when you're creating a variable. Now, let me show you some example. Now, can you tell me, given these 3 statements, these are Python statements, forget about this part, but focus on the variable. So here's the variable. This is also variable. Third one is also variable. Now, can you tell me from the 3, right, which ones are valid variable names in Python? Let's say the first variable, let's say this is 1. Is it valid or is it invalid? So I have underlined only the variable. Second one, is it valid? Third one, is it valid? How about the first one? So I'm getting answers. Good, good. Surani, you are correct. Yes. Hassan, correct. Yes, the first one is not valid. Why it is not valid? It starts with the number. So first one, the variable is invalid. How about the second one? Is it valid? Second one, again, yes. Varnika, yes. Ruanga, yes. Second one, it's again not valid. Why not valid? Second one is invalid. Why it is invalid? We have more and dollar. Dollar is a special symbol. Do you think the dollar is allowed? No, no, dollar is not allowed. Only symbol it allowed is underscore. So second one is also not allowed. Okay, let's move on to the third one. What do you think about the third one? Yes? Yes? Okay, those who are new to programming, class is not valid. The reason is it's a part of keyword. Any programming language, you have alphabet. Like in Python, these are the keywords. Now, for example, Python version 3.8, Python has 35 keywords, which means these are the words we use to write Python programs. Now, having said that we have 35 keywords, you cannot use any of these as a variable name. Now, for example, class is a part of it. Now you will see here, class is a part of it. Therefore, this is also not valid. This is not valid. No, you cannot use it. So remember this, apart from the rules that we have discussed earlier, right? You cannot use any of these keywords. But remember, some keywords, most of the keywords are in simple letters, but some keywords are there like false in capital F, none in capital N, true in capital T, and so on, right? So remember, keywords cannot be used as variable names. So make a note of this. If you are new to programming, keywords are not allowed. So you are not allowed to use these 35 Python keywords as variable names. Yes, Diniti, good. Okay, now let's move on. Let's look at assignment. Now, usually when we work with the variables, we have to assign some value. Now, one of the things that we are going to do is in the RAM, we create, if let's say we have a RAM like this, our random access memory, whenever we would write a program, we can hold values in variables. Now, if you say a equals 10, that means in the RAM, you allocate the space, right? And you name it as a. Now, in this particular case, we are going to hold 10 integer value, right? So that's actually the label that you have given for the memory, isn't it? So when you say a equals 10, so the next we will say, okay, b equals a, right? So that means b also refer to 10. So now when you say c equals a plus b, what happens? Now the value of a is 10. B is equals to a, that means the content in B is also 10. So this is also 10. That means 10 plus 10, C becomes 20. So usually what you need to remember is in assignment operation, usually you have variable in your left hand side. In the right hand side, usually you have an expression. Why I say expression, you can have numbers, you can have additions. Like let's say we can have a equals, right, 1 plus 2. So it will be expression. Or we can say a equals b plus c, some other two variables. So it could be expression, right? So simply assignment means, right, you have create a new variable and you assign value. So remember, we are not going to say that this left hand side is equal to right hand side. This is not the case. Now what we say is we create a variable a, we assign 10 to it, not we are going to say that a equals 10. Right, there's a question from Hassan. If I use capital class, will it work? Right, now let me show you, since I think good that you ask a lot of questions. Now, for example, I said we can say a equals 10. But we know that we cannot type class, right? Class equals 23, no, right? You cannot use it. But the question from Hassan is whether we can use class. Answer is yes, because it's not part of the keyword. So I can say, okay, a plus class will give us 33. Right? I hope I have answered Hassan's question. Right? It's good that you asked. So Python is case sensitive. So since class is all simple, right? If you use even capital C with class, right? Then it will take, you can take it as a variable name. Yes, it's possible. Okay, good that you have asked questions like this. Okay, if I type this, what will happen now? If I say a equals 10, that means the value of a is 10. Then we say b equals a. So that means the value of b is 10. And then when you say c equals a plus b, which means c is 20. So this is simply, we use the assignment operation. Now that we have learned assignment, now we can move further, right? we can look at some other assignment as well, right? Here are a couple of assignments are given to you, right? Now, for example, I can, have a message like greeting, like hello world. So I can create a variable name or identifier called greeting, and I can store a string value. Right? Sorry, I made a mistake. I increased, so I have to have single quote. So now this is possible. So when you say print greeting, this will print the message, because greeting holds the string value hello world. At the same time, if you say type greeting, this will give us the type of the data that it holds. So in this particular case, it says it's a class of string. Similarly, you can say n equals 17. And if you want to print it, you can say print n. It will print 17 because n holds 17. And if you check the type of n, so it will say it's an integer class. Next one, we have pi. We have pi is 3.14. And if you say print pi, it will say 3.14 and type then pi. So it's a floating point now. Okay, if you have finished up to this point, can you please raise your hand so that I can proceed to the next? Right, good, thanks. Right, there's a question asked Rajiv. Okay, Megara, no problem. I understand. No issue. Right. There's a question from Rajiv. Pi is not an inbuilt variable. No. That's why you can type it pi. But later on, we will learn, like in maths library, like we will talk about something called math. And in math, we have pi. Right? Since you have asked, I actually put it this.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you.
But generally, pi, you can take it as a variable because it's not defined or it's not in inbuilt variable. Okay, thanks. You can lower your hand. Thanks, everyone. Okay, let's move on. We have done the assignment as well. Right, now let's look at statements. Now, when you look at the Python statement, it could be like a simple expression like adding values like 1 + 1. And you can get an answer like in a calculator with Python. You can have like variables, like you can have expressions with a variable, like adding variables here, we are adding a + b. So that comes as a Python statement. Or even the function call, right? Functions we will talk about later on, right? But for the time being, len is a function where it will tell us a length of something. In this particular case, we are giving hello as a string value. So it will give us how many characters inside this hello, right? So let me quickly, show you. So simple additions you can perform like a calculator. I mean, this is true for MATLAB as well. I hope you already know if you have done command line, you can perform simple calculations. And then if you define A and B, let's say like 29, B is like 34, you can like type statements like A plus B will give you the addition of A plus B. And the last one I said is length. If there are built-in functions where you can directly use like length of word hello. So it says the length of the string. If you do not know len, you know what you need to do is you can just say help and then you type len. And help will tell us what it does. Return the number of items in a container, right? Containers we will discuss. In this particular case, string is a container of characters. So that's why it will give you the number of characters inside hello. Right. So that's about the statements. Right now we are comfortable of variable, constants, right? And the statements. Now let's look at the operators available. Right now, when you're performing calculations, you know that you have to use operators and operands. Like if you say 2 plus 3, you know, these are like operands and this is operator. So plus is an operator and these are the data items. So data items we call operands. Right now, if you go to arithmetic operators available in Python, right? So these are the arithmetic operators are available. We have addition represent using plus, subtraction using minus, multiplication using star, asterisk, division using slash, exponentiation or power of something, you have 2 asterisks, integer division using 2 slashes, and percentage mark we call modular division. Okay, Dinelka asked a good question. So if you don't mind, I will talk to that one, right? Nuan's question, the math is a library, yes. Nuan, we'll talk about how to use math library. The Rajiv's question was whether the pi is a inbuilt, variable. I said no, but if you use math library, in math library, we have a pi, right? So Dinelka needs to explain something. So let me take some time. So this is for the beginners, guys. Right now, some things when I display, right, I use quotes. Some cases I have not used quotes. Can you tell me the difference? So that was the question. Now let's see. Now we said pi equals, let's say 3.14. I will start with that. This is a good one. Now if I press print pi, it will give me the value, isn't it? But if I say print single quote and pi, what will be the output? And this is the exact question of Dinelka. So if you are new to programming, I know that this is one of the burning questions. Yes. So can somebody else explain me why? What is the output first and why we are getting that? Okay, let me explain. Now, Dinelka, when you say pi equals 3.14, that statement, we are creating a variable name. We create a variable to hold value. So in this particular case, variable pi will hold value 3.14. Now, when you want to print pi value back, you just type pi, right? But if you use single quote, what will happen? When you put a single quote, it will treat it as a message and it will print pi. So if Dinelka wants X, let's say 10, if you want to print the value, then you have to say print X. But let's say if you want to print X, then you use a single quote or double quote. Right? Dinelka, can you confirm whether you have understood? Yeah.
So that means we can write that without that sign because we have previously mentioned that exact value or something like that.
Yes, 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 yes. Now, in this particular case, for example, pi, we have already defined it, right? So pi, we are storing value 3.14. If you want to print the value inside pi, you can simply say print pi. But whenever you use single quote, then Python will treat as a message and it will print as it is. Now we want to display some things like that. Now, let me show you. Now, for example, things like this. Let me say something like this. Total is 10. Then let's say in the statement, I want to print that, right? Total, right? Comma total. Now, what will happen here? Now, since I have used total, it will print total. And when I say total there without quotes, it will print the value. So you will get something like this. So in programs, sometimes we want to print it as a message. Like let's say we are adding two numbers, we get two numbers, and finally we say, okay, total is 10. So when you want to print word total, then you put quotes. But if you need the value inside the variable total, you simply type variable name. I hope you got the point now. Okay, thanks. And we'll be using this because we need to know the difference between us using just the variable and variable is the quote. So when I use quote, single quote or double quote, it will treat it as a string. No, Hassan, we will talk about the length of vectors later on, but this length will give you the number of elements. Okay, Rajiv. Yeah, see you next class. Okay, then, right. Now let me go quickly with the arithmetics. Like additions, we can say, okay, 1 plus 1. Then it will tell 2, like 3 minus 4, say minus 1. Let's divide 10 by 3. It says 3.333 and so on. Like let's say 2 to the power, yeah, 3. This is 2 to the power 3. So it is 8. Okay, so hope you got up to this point. Now let me explain integer division. Now, if you look at 10 divided by 3, you get 3.333 and so on. But if you get 10 with double slashes like this, so this means, okay, I want to divide 10 by 3, give me the integer value of it. We call it integer division. So it will just give me 3. Finally, if I put it that way, modulo division we call it, you divide 10 by 3, give me a remainder. Now we are requesting remainder. It says remainder is 1. Yes, check these and raise your hands if you have finished up to this point. We'll move to the next. But if you have question of any of these arithmetic operators, please ask now. So about 12 finished, good. How about the others? Right, good. So remember this one, division, you know, right? So let me use another one, like let's say 4 divided by 2. What is the output? Can you guess? Darshan, I think what you mean here is element-wise division, right? So element-wise division, we'll treat it later on. Yeah, I will come to that point when we talk about the matrices. I will discuss this. But yeah, we don't have dot operators in Python. But simply division means like if you use a matrix, like say A divided by 3, it means element-wise division in Python. Since you have asked, I told you the answer, but we will discuss this in detail in the matrices, right? I hope you can wait until we start with matrices. Okay. Right. Quick question. 4 divided by 2. What is the answer? Okay, you are telling 2. I would say it's not the answer. It's not 2. You have to be very careful. And you should know this because, you know, sometimes this might create, you know, issues. Yes, it's 2.0. Division is always treated as a, you know, the outcome of a division is always a floating point number. It's a float. Make a note of this. So now, when I say integer division, remember that this is important. If you need the value as an integer value, maybe you can go for integer division. And if you take modular division, okay, can you guess what is the answer? 4 divided by 2 and the remainder. Just exactly. So it will be 0. So simple calculations we are going to talk about this. So that's about the arithmetic operations. Thanks. You can lower the hand now. We'll move to the next one. And again, if you have any questions, concerns, errors, make sure that you type your concern in the chat. Right. Now, you know, since we work on the mathematics, the order is important, right? PEMDAS is, you know, the precedence, so parentheses, exponentiation, and then, you know, multiplication and division comes in the same precedence, and the addition and subtraction also comes as the same precedence. Now, let's say if you have multiplication and division in the same one, then remember, you have to go from left to right. So most of the cases when you're solving equations or calculations, you usually go from left to right, except one case. When you get exponentiation, like 2 to the power 3 to the power 2, so then when you have powers, you have to go from right to left. So in detail, you have to refer the documentation, but for the time being, right? Diniti, can you elaborate more on what exactly you mean here with the term associativity? And order of operations, you have to concern about this. Okay. So associativity in this particular case, left to right, usual operations we can go for left to right. But some, okay, so Diniti, I think we have a detailed discussion in a separate one. So I'll come up with everything because for that, actually, we can talk about bitwise operation, logical operations. Once I complete that one, I will have a complete discussion on associativity. Is that okay? Right, because like we have to go on details exactly how operation or order of operations, but for the simply, you can remember this for the time being. And only thing I want you to remember is when you take the exponential, it goes from right to left, right? Let me give you an example. Now, for example, these are like some of the things you could try. For the time being, I'm explaining this. Now, for example, if you have, you know, 5 plus 6 into 7 plus 8, right? So this is a simple calculation. And then you know that this goes from, first of all, you have to perform multiplication. Then you get 42. Then you get 5 plus 4, 2, 47. Then 47 plus 8, you will get 55, right? So I made a mistake earlier putting space in the beginning. So right now, hopefully, yes, we are getting 55. But then again, if you want to prioritize 5 plus 6, then you need brackets. So that's what exactly I have discussed, right? And then again, when you have multiplication and division, right? So let's say you have 6 multiplied by 7 divided by 3, right? So when you have the same precedence, I told you go from left to right. Right, this is going from left to right. So that means 6 into 7, 42, right? Then divide by 3, right? Which we will get 14, right? So it goes from left to right. But if you have something like this, 2 to the power, 2 to the power, this will go from right to left, right? So that means, first of all, you will get this part 3 to the power 2, that is 9, and then 2 to the power 9, yes, you will get 512. If you want to go to left to the right, you know that you have to use brackets. That means you have to first put brackets like this. You know that you can change this precedence always using brackets. So if you put it this way, now 2 to the power is 8, 8 to the power will get 64. So make a note of this, and most of the cases you don't need this, because since I'm going to go with the basics, I thought of discussing this. But those who are curious about this, please wait. After completing all these operators, I will have a separate discussion on associativity, right? Whether to go from left to right or right to left. For the time being, just remember, most of the cases, right? If you have the same precedence, we go from left to right. Okay. Right. To finish our discussion, I will discuss one more thing and I will finish for today, right? I hope you can give a few more minutes for that. So you can try out this one, and best way to do this is, if you want to, if we have some time, maybe you can work on by hand, those who are beginners to programming, and then again, then you can, check the answer in Python. Now, one thing I want to highlight is use of this one. So if you just quickly look at these two, look same, but there's a difference. Now, when you say minus 2 to the power 4, simply you will get 2 to the power 4 and you will get as a negative value. But if you want to get minus 2 to the power 4, then remember you have to use brackets. So there are few things you have to be careful when you work with, Python or in any other languages as well, if you're not done, programming in the beginning. Right, having said that, let me go to the last part. Now the question is whether you can use operations on strings, right? Whether you can have, arithmetic operations with the strings. The answer is no. That means you cannot add two, right? Add two strings. Like, for example, I cannot say, okay, hello, right? And let's say plus, 1, you cannot do like that, right? It's not going to work, right? But it will work with two strings. Now let's say hello world. I have two words, I put plus. We will glue the two terms together. This is what we call concatenation. Concatenation means you glue the two terms together. For example, if you say SLTC plus 1 will not work, but SLTC plus this one, string one, will work because simply what happens, you can simply combine two strings together, right? So make a note of this one. So arithmetic operators are not possible with string values, but yes, you can perform addition, but we will call it concatenation. The appropriate word for that, or proper word for that, is concatenation. You can concatenate two strings together. So what is the output of this one? A short question. We have 10 and 15. What is the outcome of this? If I perform like this, are we getting 25 string value? What do you think? No, simply this will go together. Yes, good. I think majority of you got it. Okay, another one, multiplication. Now, simply you cannot multiply two strings, right? You cannot multiply two strings. No, it's not possible. It is not simply you can't do that, but you can repeat. If you have a string and a number like fun, like this. This is very interesting. Early days when we do not have graphical user interfaces, many of you had these textual interfaces, right? Simply like dashes. If you multiply this 30 times, see what you get. Or maybe you can use underscore 30 times. You can simply draw lines. You see, you can experiment on these things. Okay, so with that one, I would like to conclude for today's session. And hopefully I would like to meet you on Friday to discuss more on Python. But remember, I have assumed no previous knowledge on Python as well as programming. But then if you get bored, please let me know. I can skip some of the things so that we can learn more on advanced stuff. But since there are some of you are new to programming or with minimal exposure to programming, I thought of go very slowly in the beginning, maybe first 4 sessions or so. And at the end of the session, I'll be covering more advanced stuff in Python, right? Having said that, maybe we can finish for today. Good night, everyone. And I will share like Google Classroom link as well as the note and the video with you. You are free to contact me with any issues, problems, and if you want to learn whatever in Python programming. Right. Good luck then. Good night, everyone. We'll meet you on.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.